What's up, residents? Well, what a surprise. Just when you thought Warner Bros. Was done with delivering MonsterVerse news after such an epic trailer for Godzilla vs. Kong, they've only gone and just announced a brand new Kong series that is set to continue the MonsterVerse past Godzilla vs. Kong. So let's not waste any more time, let's get into it. I'm Alistair, and welcome to DangerVIlle. This news is extra special because it was previously unknown whether the MonsterVerse would even continue past Godzilla vs. Kong, excluding the graphic novels that have yet to be released. But here we are, standing before you today with the news that the MonsterVerse, or at least Kong's story, will continue past 2021. There was some rumors about a new Monarch series that would have come to HBO Max, but that was simply that, a rumor. This is something entirely different and is completely true after it was confirmed by Netflix's Twitter account that it would be coming to their service. Simply called Skull Island, the logline goes as such. A shipwrecked crew, an island of monsters, and one king to rule them all. I just realized that one king to rule them all is play on words for Lord of the Rings. That flew completely over my head. That one king is obviously Kong, but what can we gather from this logline is that the crew will be stranded on the island and will have to fight off all sorts of beasts we've come to recognize from the film, as well as any potential new ones, all whilst they try to survive the harsh environment on the island, whether that be the deadly caverns, deep lakes, or maybe even the tribespeople. The series will be written by Brian Duffield, who also wrote Underwater and Love and Monsters, which are both highly underrated movies from last year that I recommend seeing, especially Love and Monsters. But taking both these into account, he should be able to bring some of that dark and dreaded overarching theme to the show, whilst adding some light-hearted humor and campiness we got from Skull Island. We don't know when exactly this is set, but we have some pretty good evidence that it will be set before the events of Kong Skull Island, and I'll tell you why. In the novelization of Kong Skull Island, when Randa is discussing how deadly the island is, he explains that there was some talks that in 1933 a movie crew disappeared and ended up in Skull Island, which is obviously referencing the events of the 1933 original. In Skull Island, there's also a boat called the Wanderer, which acts as a homage towards the Venture, which is the vessel that took the crew to Skull Island in the original film, its sequel, and the 2005 remake. In Skull Island, the Iwis use this shipwreck as a temple to worship Kong, almost like a museum, describing his history and the events that transcribe between the Skullcrawlers attacking, as well as Kong pushing them back to the Hollow Earth. So it's safe to assume the series will focus on the crew of the Wanderer as they end up shipwrecked and battle for survival. I'm quite excited to see how they go about adapting the original and seeing how it will change to fit the MonsterVerse. Monarch was formed in 1943 after an attack on the USS Lawton by a massive, unidentified creature that ended up being Godzilla himself, but that takes place 10 years after the crew is stranded on Skull Island, so there's only two possible outcomes for the series. The crew makes it out alive, but with no proof of the island, everyone calls the survivors crackpots, who lost their minds after being stranded, or the more dreaded option being, they don't survive. Either way, I'm super invested to see how they go about doing this. The show will be coming straight to Netflix instead of HBO Max, which is most likely due to Netflix having a wider reach at this time. Powerhouse Animation will be animating the show, who you might recognize for the awesomely brutal Castlevania series, so hopefully they can bring the same kind of brutal and gory style of animation to Skull Island. I'm sure some of you might be disappointed it's an animated series. Trust me, I want a live-action series just as much as the next guy, but I'm just happy we're going to be able to see the MonsterVerse continue past 2021, so I'll take anything at this point. This series might be a direct response to Camp Cretaceous, a spin-off to the Jurassic World films that released on Netflix that deemed to be a massive success on the platform. Although if Castlevania has anything to say about it, Skull Island will be a much more mature series. And if it's a success, the likelihood is we'll potentially even see a live-action MonsterVerse series in the future. So be sure to check out the series when it releases. We'll be covering it here whenever we hear any news about it. So subscribe and stomp that notification button to become a resident of DangerVIlle today. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like because it helps this video reach a wider audience to help the MonsterVerse become an even bigger success. I've been Alistair from DangerVIlle, and we'll see you residents in the next one.